Step into a world of imagination where science meets mystery. On this channel, Sci-Fi Stories, you'll experience exciting sci-fi stories about futuristic worlds, space adventures, advanced technology, and unexpected twists. Every story is told in a natural human voice, not AI generated, to give you a more real and engaging storytelling experience. If you love immersive sci-fi tales and powerful storytelling, you're in the right place. Let's start the story.
You want to know what happens when a decorated veteran of an intergalactic war walks into a college campus full of bullies who think they're tough? Nothing good. For the bullies. Part 1. The registrar's office smelled like paper and anxiety. Kaylin stood in line behind a girl who kept checking her phone every 4 seconds, her thumb moving in frantic little circles over the screen. The girl's perfume was sweet, too sweet, and it made Kaylin's nose itch. She stepped back half a step, then caught herself. 6 inches of extra space. Tactical habit. Hard to break. Next. The woman behind the counter had grey hair and glasses on a chain, and the kind of tired expression that said she'd been doing this job since before Kaylin was born. Her nameplate read M. Hendricks, Student Services. Kaylin stepped forward. Kaylin Voss. I'm here to register for... Voss? The woman's eyes flicked to her screen, then back to Kaylin's face. Something shifted in her expression. Recognition, maybe, or pity. Hard to tell the difference anymore. Yes, I see your file. Military transfer. Welcome to Northwood. She said, welcome like it was a diagnosis. Thanks. Your ID card will be ready in 20 minutes. In the meantime, you'll need to complete these forms. She slid a stack of papers across the counter. Emergency contact, medical history, academic preferences, and the behavioural agreement. Kaylin picked up the stack. Behavioural agreement? Standard policy. All students sign it. Basically says you won't disrupt campus operations or engage in threatening behaviour. Kaylin thought about the Kefir tunnels. About the things she'd done there. About the way her hands still shook sometimes when she woke up in the dark. I think I can manage that. Emma Hendricks smiled like she didn't believe her. We'll see. The campus was a maze of brick buildings and carefully manicured lawns. Students moved in clusters, laughing and shouting and living the kind of lives Kaylin had forgotten existed. Normal lives, safe lives. The kind where the biggest worry was a midterm exam or a broken heart. She walked the perimeter first. Old habit. Map the terrain, identify choke points, note the exits. The main quad was a kill box. Too open, too many sightlines. The library had good cover on the north side. The parking garage was a disaster waiting to happen. She was noting the structural weaknesses of the student union when someone slammed into her from behind. Hey, you watch it! The voice was female, sharp, annoyed. Kaylin turned to find a girl with blonde hair and expensive sneakers glaring at her. 2 other girls flanked her. Same sneakers, same expression, same carefully curated disdain. Kaylin had seen this before. On every base, every ship, every forward operating post. The pack animals. The ones who survived by finding someone weaker and making sure everyone knew it. Sorry, Kaylin said. Flat, neutral, give them nothing. You should be. The blonde girl stepped closer. She was taller than Kaylin by 3 inches, broader in the shoulders. You're the new transfer, right? The military girl? Word travelled fast. It always did. That's me. Heard you think you're hot shit because you saw some action. The girl smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. This isn't the military, sweetheart. Out here, you're nobody. Kaylin looked at her. Really looked. Noticed the way her weight shifted to her back foot. Defensive posture, not aggressive. Noticed the way her eyes kept darting to the sides, checking to see if anyone was watching. Noticed the way her hands were shoved in her pockets, hiding something. Confidence was quiet. Insecurity was loud. Is there a problem here? A new voice. Male, calm, with the kind of easy authority that came from never having to prove anything. The blonde girl's expression flickered. No problem, Professor Chen. Just welcoming the new student. Consider her welcomed. The man stepped into view, mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a tweed jacket with leather patches on the elbows, the uniform of academia. "You three have somewhere to be, I believe. Don't you have a psych seminar in 5 minutes?" The blonde girl shot Kaylin one last look. "This isn't over," and walked away, her pack trailing behind her. Professor Chen watched them go, then turned to Kaylin. "You all right?" "Fine." That was Mara Sinclair. Her father donates generously to the athletic department. She thinks that makes her untouchable. Kaylin nodded. She'd met 100 Mara Sinclairs. They were all the same. "Thanks for the assist." "I didn't assist, I observed." He smiled. "You looked like you had it under control." He wasn't wrong. Kaylin had already calculated 17 ways to neutralize the blonde girl and her friends, none of which would have left visible marks. But she'd learned that civilians didn't appreciate that kind of calculation. "Professor Chen," she said, "you teach psych?" "Among other things. Why not I also run the Veteran Integration Program, which I assume is why you're here." "Among other things," he laughed. "Fair enough. Walk with me. I'll show you where your first class is." The classroom was small, 15 desks arranged in a semicircle, whiteboard at the front, windows that faced the quad. Kaylin chose a seat in the back corner, where she could see the door and the windows and everyone in between. Professor Chen stood at the front, shuffling papers. "Welcome to Advanced Interpersonal Dynamics. For those of you who didn't read the syllabus, and I know most of you didn't, this course examines how individuals and groups interact under various conditions. We'll be covering conflict resolution, negotiation tactics, leadership styles, and group psychology." He paused, scanning the room. His eyes landed on Kaylin. Lingered. "We'll also be discussing something I call the misunderstanding problem, the tendency for individuals from different backgrounds to fundamentally misinterpret each other's intentions. This happens across cultures, across species, and, increasingly, across the civilian-military divide." Someone in the front row snickered. Kaylin recognized the back of a blonde head. "Something funny, Ms. Sinclair?" "No, Professor. Just wondering if the misunderstanding problem applies to people who think they're tougher than everyone else." A few students laughed. Nervous laughter. The kind that came from not wanting to be the target. Kaylin said nothing. She'd learned that silence was its own kind of weapon. Professor Chen's expression didn't change. "Interesting perspective. Let's test it. Ms. Voss, would you be willing to share your thoughts on the matter?" Every head turned. 15 pairs of eyes, ranging from curious to hostile. Kaylin stood up slowly. Not because she needed to, she could have spoken from her seat, but because standing changed the geometry of the room. Made her a target, yes, but also made her a threat. "In my experience," she said, "the people who talk the most about being tough are usually the ones who've never had to prove it. Real toughness is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself." Mara Sinclair's face flushed. "And I suppose you're real tough? With your military haircut and your little veteran act?" The room went silent. Kaylin walked forward. Not fast, not aggressive, just moving, closing distance. Mara's friend, the one on her left, shrank back in her seat. The other one reached for her phone, then thought better of it. Mara herself held her ground, but Kaylin saw it. The flicker. The moment when confidence turned to doubt. "I spent 6 years in the grinder," Kaylin said, her voice low enough that only the first few rows could hear. "I've killed things that would make you wet yourself just looking at them. I've been shot, stabbed, and blown up twice. And I'm still standing." She stopped 3 feet from Mara's desk. "So when I say that real toughness is quiet, I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm giving you a fact, one that you'd do well to remember." Mara opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "That's enough," Professor Chen said. His voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. Approval, maybe. Or curiosity. "Ms. Voss, please take your seat." Kaylin held Mara's gaze for one more second. Then she turned and walked back to her corner. The rest of the class passed in a blur of lectures and note-taking and forced discussion. Kaylin participated when called upon, gave answers that were precise and unadorned, and said nothing else. When the bell rang, she was the first one out the door. The library was quiet. Kaylin liked quiet. In the grinder, quiet meant safety, meant the enemy wasn't close, meant you could breathe for a minute before the next wave of chaos. She found a carrel on the third floor, tucked between shelves of engineering texts and obsolete reference materials. Good sightlines. Only one approach. She could see the elevator and the stairs from here. But she pulled out her datapad and started on the reading assignment, a dense article about cross-cultural negotiation frameworks. The words blurred together. She read the same paragraph 3 times, retained nothing. Her mind kept drifting. Back to the grinder, back to the tunnels, back to the night everything changed. The Kefir don't negotiate. They don't surrender. They don't feel fear the way we do. So we had to teach them. She shook her head, forced herself to focus on the text. Negotiation requires mutual understanding of value. Without shared value frameworks, parties default to, hey. Kaylin's hand moved before her brain caught up. She was half out of her chair, right arm extended, fingers curled into a strike position. The guy standing there, tall, lanky, and with messy brown hair and a nervous smile, jumped back so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet. Whoa, 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 friendly, I'm friendly. Kaylin forced herself to relax, dropped her hands, sat back down. Sorry, reflex. No kidding. He held up his hands in mock surrender. Note to self, do not sneak up on the veteran. You didn't sneak, I was distracted. Still, he lowered his hands. I'm Leo Kim. I sit 2 rows behind you in Chen's class. Kaylin studied him. Young, maybe 19, 20, soft hands, no calluses, eyes that hadn't seen anything worse than a bad grade or a broken heart. Kaylin. Yeah, I know. He gestured to the chair across from her. Can I sit? She nodded once. He sat, folding himself into the chair like he was made of hinges. Look, I'm not going to pretend I know what you've been through. I don't. I read the news. I see the casualty reports. But I've never... He stopped, rubbed the back of his neck. I'm not good at this. At what? Talking to people who've actually done something with their lives. Kaylin almost smiled. Almost. You're doing fine. Really? Because I feel like I'm babbling. You are, but it's fine. Leo laughed. It was a good laugh. Genuine, unforced. Okay, let me try again. I came over here because I wanted to say that what you did in class today was awesome. Mara's been terrorizing this campus for 2 years, and nobody's ever stood up to her like that. I didn't stand up to her. I stated a fact. Same thing, in her world. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. The point is, you've got a fan. If you need anything, someone to show you around, someone to grab coffee with, someone to watch your back, I'm your guy. Kaylin looked at him for a long moment, looking for the angle, the lie, the setup. She didn't find one. I'll keep that in mind, Leo smiled. Good, that's good. He stood up. I'll let you get back to your reading, but seriously, coffee sometime. My treat. He walked away, and Kaylin watched him go. Watched the way he moved through the stacks, unaware, unguarded, trusting. She wondered what it felt like to be that safe. The trouble started 3 days later. Kaylin was walking back to her dorm after evening chow. She still called it chow, couldn't break the habit, when she heard footsteps behind her. Multiple sets, fast, closing. She didn't turn around, didn't break stride, just listened. 4 people, maybe 5. Breathing hard, they'd been running to catch up. Footwear, sneakers, and probably the expensive kind. No weapons that she could hear, but that didn't mean anything. She reached the corner of the humanities building and turned left. The footsteps followed. Good. The humanities building had a service alley behind it. Dark, out of sight of the main paths. If they wanted to start something, they'd do it there. She stopped in the middle of the alley, turned around. Mara Sinclair stepped out of the shadows, flanked by 4 guys. Big guys. The kind who spent more time in the gym than the library. "Hello, soldier," Mara said. "We need to talk." Kaylin said nothing, just stood there, hands at her sides, breathing slow and even. "You embarrassed me in front of the whole class," Mara continued. "Made me look like an idiot. Can't have that." "So, what's your solution?" Mara smiled. "A conversation. A man to man. Well, woman to woman, I guess. About respect. And you brought friends to this conversation because I wanted to make sure you listened." Kaylin looked at the four guys, studied them the way she'd studied 1,000 enemies in the grinder. Guy 1, 6'2", 220, hands shoved in his pockets. No training, no idea what he was doing. Guy 2, shorter, wider, weight on his heels. Wanted to run, but was too afraid of Mara to do it. Guy 3, nervous, kept glancing at the exits. This one had a conscience. Interesting. Guy 4, the real threat, standing slightly apart from the others, weight balanced, eyes tracking her movements. This one had training. Maybe military, maybe security, but something. "Here's how this is going to work," Mara said. "You're going to apologize. Publicly. In front of the whole class. And then you're going to transfer to a different section. Chen's afternoon class, maybe, and we're never going to see each other again. And if I don't?" Mara's smile widened. "Then my friends here are going to convince you, and they can be very persuasive." Kaylin took a breath, let it out slowly. She'd been in this position before, surrounded, outnumbered, expected to fold. But the people who'd surrounded her before had been Kefa warriors, creatures bred for combat, hardened by centuries of warfare, armed with weapons that could tear through battle armor like paper. These were college kids. "I'm going to give you one chance," Kaylin said. Her voice was quiet, calm. The voice she used in the tunnels right before things got ugly. "Walk away, all of you. Pretend this never happened, and we'll go on with our lives." Mara laughed. "You think you can threaten me?" "I'm not threatening you. I'm warning you." Kaylin's eyes moved from face to face. "I've killed more things than you can imagine. I've done things that would break your mind if you knew about them. And I learned something in the grinder, something that applies here." "What's that?" Kaylin shifted her weight, rolled her shoulders, let the mask drop. "The only way to survive a fight is to end it. Fast. Before the other side even knows what's happening." Guy 4 saw it coming. He was already moving, already reaching for something in his jacket. He was too slow. Kaylin closed the distance in 3 steps. Her left hand caught Guy 4's wrist, twisted, disarmed him before his hand cleared his pocket. Her right elbow connected with his solar plexus. He folded like a chair. Guy 1 charged. She sidestepped, used his momentum to send him crashing into the brick wall. He hit hard, went down, stayed down. Guy 2 froze. Kaylin ignored him. He wasn't a threat anymore. Guy 3 was already running. Mara stood there, mouth open, eyes wide. Kaylin walked toward her. Slowly. Deliberately. "This is the part where you realize you've made a terrible mistake," Kaylin said. "This is the part where you understand that I'm not like the other students you pushed around. I'm not weak. I'm not scared. I'm not impressed by your money or your father's donations or your friends with their gym muscles." Mara backed up until she hit the wall. "Stay away from me. You came to me. You brought friends. You tried to intimidate me." Kaylin stopped 3 feet away, close enough to be threatening, or far enough to be legal. "And now you're going to leave. You're going to walk away, and you're never going to speak to me again. You're going to pretend I don't exist. And if I hear that you've been bothering anyone else, anyone at all, I'm going to come find you, and we're going to have another conversation." Mara's lip trembled. "You can't threaten me." "I'm not threatening you. I'm promising you." Kaylin stepped back. "Now get out of my sight." Mara ran. Guy 2 helped Guy 1 to his feet, and they limped away into the darkness. Guy 4 was still on the ground, gasping for breath. Kaylin looked down at him. "You've got training." "Where?" "Marines," he wheezed. 2 years. Medical discharge." "Then you know better than to get mixed up in something like this." He nodded, face pale. Next time is choose your battles more carefully. She turned and walked away, leaving him there in the alley. Professor Chen called her into his office the next morning. Sit down, Ms. Voss. She sat. The office was small, cluttered with books and papers and the kind of academic detritus that accumulated over decades. A picture on the desk showed a younger Chen with a woman and 2 children. 4 students were treated at the campus health center last night, he said. Minor injuries, bruises mostly, 1 possible concussion. I wouldn't know anything about that. Chen leaned back in his chair, studied her. Mara Sinclair's father called the dean this morning. He's demanding an investigation. He's threatening to go to the press. Kaelin said nothing. The dean asked for my opinion. I told him that, based on witness accounts, Ms. Sinclair and 4 male students confronted you in a dark alley. I told him that you appeared to act in self-defense. I told him that if anyone should be facing disciplinary action, it's the people who started the fight. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Mara's father has a lot of influence. He might push for expulsion anyway. Kaelin met his eyes. I've faced worse than an angry rich man. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Can I ask you something personal? You can ask. Why are you here? Really? You're a decorated veteran. You could have gone to any school in the country, but you chose Northwood, a small community college in the middle of nowhere. Kaelin looked at the picture on his desk, the family, the life he'd built. Because I wanted to see if I could still be human, she said. After everything, I wanted to know if there was anything left underneath the soldier. Chen nodded slowly. And what have you learned? Kaelin thought about Leo, about his awkward kindness, about the way he'd offered to watch her back without expecting anything in return, about the way she'd felt for just a moment, like maybe she could belong somewhere again. I'm still figuring that out. The next few weeks were quiet. Too quiet. Kaelin knew the pattern. The calm before the storm. The moment when the enemy regrouped, reassessed, came up with a new plan. Mara Sinclair avoided her. That was fine. Expected even. But Kaelin noticed other things. The way groups of students would go quiet when she walked by. The way conversations would stop, then resume in hushed tones. The way people looked at her now, not with curiosity or hostility, but with something else. Fear. She'd wanted respect. She'd gotten fear instead. They weren't the same thing. Leo didn't seem to care. He sat next to her in every class now, talked to her during breaks, brought her coffee without being asked. He was relentlessly, almost aggressively friendly. You're doing that thing again, he said one afternoon, sliding a cup across the table. What thing? The thing where you scan the room like you're expecting an ambush. Kaelin took the coffee. Black, no sugar. The way she liked it. She hadn't told him that. He'd just noticed. Habit. I know. He sat down across from her. But you're not on a battlefield, Kaelin. You're in a cafeteria. The most dangerous thing here is the mystery meat. She almost smiled. Almost. You'd be surprised what people are capable of. Would I? Leo's expression shifted, became serious. I've seen the news. I know what's happening out there. The Kepha, the syndicate worlds, the border conflicts. I know people like you are the only reason places like this still exist. Kaelin looked down at her coffee. People like me? People who do the jobs nobody else wants to do. Who go to the places nobody else will go. Who come back different. The word hung in the air between them. You don't know anything about me, Kaelin said. I know you saved my life. She looked up. What? Last week. In the parking garage. You didn't see me, but I saw you. There was a guy, I don't know, drunk, high, something. He was following me. I didn't notice. But you did. You walked between us, said something to him, and he left. Kaelin remembered. A man with hollow eyes and a knife in his pocket. She'd assessed the threat, calculated the response, and chosen de-escalation. It had taken less than 10 seconds. You didn't need saving. He was just lost. Confused. He had a knife. He did. Leo leaned forward. That's my point. You saw the knife? I didn't. You saw the threat before it was a threat, and you handled it without anyone getting hurt. Kaylin took a sip of her coffee. It was good, strong, made the way she'd learned to make it in the field. Dark enough to strip paint, hot enough to wake the dead. That's just training. No, that's you. Leo's voice was quiet, certain. That's who you are, and I think you forgot that somewhere along the way. Kaylin set down her cup, looked at him, really looked. He wasn't afraid of her. Well, wasn't trying to use her or impress her or manipulate her. He was just there, present, unafraid. Why do you care? She asked. Because someone has to. He shrugged. Because I read the reports? Because I know what the suicide rates are like for veterans. Because I figured maybe you needed a friend more than you needed another person treating you like a weapon. Kaylin felt something shift in her chest. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. Warmth. I don't know how to do this, she said. The friend thing. The normal thing. I've been a soldier for so long, I forgot how to be anything else. Then we'll figure it out together. Leo smiled. That's what friends do. The incident happened on a Thursday. Kaylin was in the library, same Carol, same position. And she'd finished her reading and was working through a problem set for her math class when her datapad pinged. An emergency alert. Attention, active threat on campus. Shelter in place. This is not a drill. She was on her feet before the message finished loading. The library was already in chaos, students running, shouting, knocking over chairs in their panic. Kaylin grabbed the nearest person, a girl who looked about 16, and shoved her toward the stairwell. Go down, basement, lock the door behind you. The girl ran. Kaylin moved in the opposite direction, toward the sound. The threat was on the second floor. She could hear it now, gunfire, multiple shots, spaced irregularly. Civilian weapon, not military. Handgun, probably 9mm. The shooter was inexperienced. The shots were wild, uncontrolled. She hit the stairs at a sprint. 2 at a time. Her mind was already running calculations, distance, trajectory, likely positions. The neural lace in her head buzzed, feeding her combat data that she hadn't asked for but couldn't refuse. Heart rate, elevated. Adrenaline, optimal. Threat level, moderate. Recommend engagement. She ignored the recommendation. She didn't need a computer telling her what to do. She'd been doing this since before the neural lace was installed. The second floor was a war zone. Bodies on the floor, students, faculty, it was hard to tell. Blood on the walls, the acrid smell of gunpowder and fear. And there, at the end of the main aisle, a figure in dark clothing. Male. Medium height. Holding a gun. Kaylin dropped into a crouch behind a bookshelf. Assessed. Weapon, 9mm semi-automatic. Set capacity, 15 rounds. Rounds remaining, unknown. Shooter's stance, poor. Grip, incorrect. Threat level to civilians, high. Probability of successful disarming, 94%. Probability of disarming without casualties, 87%. Probability of disarming without injury to self, 72%. Good enough. She moved, not fast, controlled. Each step calculated, silent, invisible. She'd learned to move like this in the Kefir tunnels, where sound meant death and light meant discovery. The shooter was reloading, fumbling with the magazine, hands shaking. He hadn't seen her. She closed the distance. 10 feet. 5. 3. Now. Her left hand caught his wrist, twisting it up and back. Her right hand stripped the weapon from his grip. Her knee connected with the back of his leg, buckling him. He went down hard, face first into the carpet. She pinned him there, one knee in his spine, the gun now in her hand, safety on, pointed at the floor. It's over, she said. Don't move. He tried to struggle. She increased pressure. He stopped. Sirens in the distance. Getting closer. Kaylin looked around at the carnage, at the bodies, at the blood. 7% chance of injury, she thought. I should have taken the shot sooner. The police arrived 6 minutes later. They found Kaylin sitting on the floor, the shooter still pinned beneath her, the weapon secured in her backpack. She'd field-dressed 3 wounds while waiting. 2 superficial, 1 serious, but stable. The tourniquet on the serious one had been applied with military precision. They asked her a lot of questions. She answered them all, her voice flat and professional. Yes, I was in the library. Yes, I heard the shots. Yes, I engaged the shooter. No, I don't have a license to carry. Yes, I have training. 6 years in the military. 3 deployments. The grinder. The officer writing down her statement paused at that last word, looked up at her with new eyes. The grinder? Yes, I heard stories. They're all true. The officer didn't ask any more questions after that. Professor Chen found her in the dean's office 3 hours later. How are you holding up? Kaylin sat in a leather chair, staring at the wall. She'd been debriefed, questioned, praised, and cautioned, sometimes in the same sentence. The dean had called her a hero. The campus security chief had called her a liability. The police had called her a witness. She felt none of it, just the familiar numbness that came after combat. The hollow space where emotions used to live. I've been better. Chen sat down across from her. The shooter was a former student, expelled last year for threatening behaviour. He'd been making online posts about getting even for weeks. Nobody flagged them. Someone always misses something. Someone always does. Chen leaned forward. You saved lives today, Kaylin. A lot of lives. The police say if you hadn't acted when you did, the death toll would have been much higher. Kaylin closed her eyes, saw the bodies, the blood, the faces of the students she hadn't reached in time. 3 people died. 3 people I couldn't save. And 23 people are alive because of you. She opened her eyes, looked at him. That's not how it works, she said. In the military, we don't count the ones we save. We count the ones we lose. Because the ones we lose are the ones we failed. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, That's why you came here, isn't it? Not to learn, to forget. I came here to remember what it felt like to be human. And Kaylin thought about Leo, about the way he'd brought her coffee without being asked, about the way he'd looked at her like she was a person, not a weapon, about the way she'd felt, for just a moment, like maybe she could put down the weight she'd been carrying. I'm still working on it. The media descended on Northwood like locusts. News crews, reporters, cameras and microphones and questions shouted from every direction. They wanted the hero, the soldier, the woman who'd stopped a massacre. They got Kaylin Voss standing in front of the library wearing the same clothes she'd worn during the shooting, her face expressionless and her eyes distant. Ms. Voss, how did you know what to do? Training. Ms. Voss, did you fear for your life? I don't feel fear the way other people do. Ms. Voss, what would you say to the families of the victims? She paused at that one, looked directly into the camera, into the eyes of everyone watching. I'd tell them I'm sorry, I'd tell them I did everything I could, and I'd tell them that their children didn't die alone. I was there. I held their hands. I told them they were brave. The reporter blinked, swallowed. That's very moving, Ms. Voss. Kaylin said nothing. She'd learned that silence was its own kind of answer. Mara Sinclair came to see her the next day. Kaylin was in her dorm room, packing. The military had called. They were revoking her deferment. They needed her back. The Kefir had broken through the line, and experienced soldiers were in short supply. There was a knock on the door. Kaylin opened it. Mara stood in the hallway, alone, without makeup, without her expensive clothes or her pack of followers. She looked like a different person, smaller, younger, scared. Can I come in? Kaylin stepped aside. Mara walked into the room, looked around at the bare walls, the military-issue duffel bag, the complete absence of personal effects. You're leaving. Tomorrow. Because of what happened? Because the military says I'm needed elsewhere. Mara sat down on the edge of the bed, Her hands were shaking. I wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything, for the alley, for the way I treated you, for being exactly the kind of person you said I was. Kaylin leaned against the wall, crossed her arms. Why now? Because I saw the footage of what you did in the library, and I realized... Mara stopped, took a breath. I realized that I've never done anything that mattered. My whole life I've just been existing, taking up space, making other people miserable because I was miserable. She looked up at Kaylin. Her eyes were wet. You're not like that. You're not like anyone I've ever met. You've seen things I can't imagine, done things I'll never understand. And you're still trying to be good. Kaylin didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Mara continued. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that you changed me, that I'm going to try to be better. Because of you. The room was quiet. Somewhere outside, a bird was singing. Be better for yourself, Kaylin said finally. Not for me. Not for anyone else. Do it because you want to be someone you can respect when you look in the mirror. Mara nodded, wiped her eyes, stood up. Thank you. For everything. She walked to the door, paused. Kaylin, when you go back out there, please come home safe. Kaylin nodded once. Mara left. Leo found her at the library. The same Carol, the same position. You're really going back. I have to. No, you don't. You could stay. You could finish school. You could have a normal life. Kaylin looked at him, at his earnest face, his genuine concern, his complete inability to understand what she was carrying. This is who I am, Leo. This is what I'm for. That's not true. You're not a weapon. Or you're a person. Sometimes I forget the difference. He sat down across from her, reached across the table and took her hand. She let him. I'm going to miss you, he said. I'm going to miss you too. Promise me something. What? Promise me you'll come back. When it's over, when the war is done, come back here and finish what you started. Kaylin looked at their hands, at the way his fingers intertwined with hers, at the simple human contact that she'd been missing for so long. I promise. He squeezed her hand. Let go. Then I'll be here, waiting. The transport left at 0600. Kaylin stood on the tarmac, watching the sun rise over the mountains. Her duffel bag was at her feet. Her orders were in her pocket. Her neural lace was already syncing with the military network, downloading the latest intel, preparing her for what was to come. She should have felt fear, or anger, or something. Instead, she felt nothing. The familiar emptiness, the comfortable void. The transport door opened. A crew chief waved her aboard. She picked up her bag, walked toward the ramp, and then she stopped. Because there, at the edge of the tarmac, standing behind the security fence, was Leo. He was holding a cup of coffee. Her coffee, black, no sugar. He raised the cup in salute. Kaylin felt something crack inside her, something hard and cold, and carefully constructed. She raised her hand, waved back, and then she walked up the ramp, into the transport, and into the war. Ending, the Kefir never understood humanity. They understood strength. They understood fear. They understood the cold calculus of combat and the brutal arithmetic of war. But they never understood why human soldiers fought so hard, why they endured so much, why they kept coming, wave after wave, even when victory was impossible. They never understood that humans weren't fighting for territory or resources or ideology. They were fighting for each other, for the friend who brought them coffee, for the professor who believed in them, for the bully who found redemption, for the promise of coming home. The Kefir learned this lesson the hard way. In the grinder, in the tunnels, in every engagement where human soldiers stood their ground against impossible odds and somehow impossibly prevailed. They learned that human strength wasn't in their weapons or their technology or their tactics. It was in their hearts, and that was something no amount of training could replicate. No simulation could capture. No enemy could defeat. Kaylin Voss carried that lesson back to the war. Carried it into every battle, every firefight, every desperate last stand. She carried the memory of Leo's coffee, of Mara's apology, of Professor Chen's quiet belief. She carried the weight of the 3 she couldn't save, and the 23 she could. And when the Kefir came for her, when they surrounded her in a tunnel much like the one where she'd lost so much, she didn't feel fear. She felt purpose. She felt the neural lace buzzing, feeding her data, calculating her odds. She felt the weight of the weapon in her hands and the memory of a promise in her heart. I'll be here, waiting. She smiled, and then she went to work. The after-action report would call it a decisive engagement resulting in the neutralization of a hostile combatant force. The soldiers who were there would call it something else. They'd call it the day Kaylin Voss showed them what a human being could do when they had something to fight for. 17 Kefir warriors, 3 plasma rifles, 2 hours of sustained combat in close quarters. Kaylin walked out alone, battered, bleeding, but alive. And somewhere, on a small college campus in the middle of nowhere, a boy with messy brown hair was waiting with a cup of coffee. Black, no sugar, just the way she liked it.